I'm the costume designer for Antony and Cleopatra. I have read Antony and Cleopatra before, but no professional costume design. I draw my inspiration normally from art from the period, right? So I start off looking at carvings and art of Cleopatra that was done when she reigned. Now, a lot of that is after the fact, so you have to sort of take into consideration who is doing the art and what time period it's being done. What I try not to do is take inspiration from, let's say, the Elizabeth Taylor version, because there is so much 1950s, 1960s influence into those silhouettes. Also, I really don't like to copy another designer, right? This, especially like for a theater like Quintessence, that's so original, so unique. You really want to bring a new idea to the table. I think one of the big pitfalls you can fall into is making her a caricature. She is a real person, especially in a production like this, right? She has foibles, she has strong points, she has weaknesses, and you don't just want her to be a costumed person on stage, right? So we're trying to get away from the pharaoh costume and into what does a queen represent, right? Now she does have her, like Queen Elizabeth I, she draws on goddess imagery to make herself stronger for her people. So we have a gorgeous mask for Isis that she enters in. So we have those big grand gestures, but we really want to bring in like a queenly silhouette that brings in the Egyptian silhouette that is right for our production and for Deanna, the actress. So lots of shears, lots of beading. It was a hot climate, right? So there's a lack of clothing. At the same time, there's big spectacle with the clothing. Lots of pleats, lots of drapes, lots of gold, especially for Cleopatra, right? She had like all the money that you could have. So you want to represent that in the silhouette. I think the way that this production is different is that we are really blending a modern silhouette and a period moment together. We start by seeing Cleopatra in a very sultry moment, right? She and Antony are lovers. It's a very passionate opening to the production. And then we sort of see her armor up as the play goes on, right? She becomes more guarded. We see her then, Antony has left her, she's more vulnerable. So I think in that vulnerability, she armors up. Right, we see her with more jewelry. We see her with, we're doing a waist armor piece for Act 2 when she actually goes into battle. So we sort of see her become more fierce as the production goes on. And then in that final death moment, I think we see her actually sort of go back into what I would call like a sheer sultry moment where it's a very intimate death for her. And she's sort of giving into her passions once more. Alex is an incredible director to work with because he embraces all things dramatic and spectacle on stage. So I know going into design discussions that anything is on the table. We were really inspired in our discussions that like this is a political crisis drama and we are in a political crisis at this very moment, and how do we bring that language to the table? So we see the Romans as like these very uptight politicians, and then we have the Egyptians as like this open, feminine, romantic, flowery silhouettes, right? And then we see Antony sort of start off in that Egyptian world and then transfer over to the Roman world. So really wanting to blend like a modern political vibe with something more a period in Egyptian was our first conversations. So let's take Caesar for example, right? We were like, he is a Donald Trump son vibe, right? And so pulling into a sharp tailored suit, right, is and following that thread down its line, and then adding in the like sort of the drapey Roman pleated like dramatic moment to complement that. Right? And then, so we have our Romans that are very masculine and our Egyptians that are very feminine, and then finding like the textures that work with all of that together. So Deanna is a very petite person. Any large scale makeup is the danger is it will drown her out. So working with her is creating something that she can, one, do for every performance, right? And also represents Cleopatra and the drama of that. So we're going to use a lot of golds, we're going to use a lot of whites, staying away from the darker tones to sort of accent her eye. And then we're also going to do a bunch of arm painting and like tattoos up her arms, because her arms are bear a lot of the production. And that will sort of go along with the rest of the Egyptians as well. So we sort of have like that language coming through. Even Antony is going to get some tattooing. So I think it's really working with like the motifs of Egyptian art to create the tattoos, and then create an eye that is, yes, that like known Cleopatra eye, but also fits with Diana and her performance. So a lot of Egyptian tattoos were painted on. They didn't have a classic tattooing method. However, they did paint with gold and scarab beetle paint. A lot of arm stuff, a lot of finger stuff. Turquoise was used to create like nail painting at that point. So there's lots of opportunities, and I think the language is just to push the Egyptians into a looser world than the Romans. Sort of like taking that few moments of historical research and be like, okay, we're gonna lean into that like crazy, right? Also just to fill up our stage. You know, we have a very compact cast playing a ton of characters, and the more languages we can get to define characters, the better. And tattooing is a great option for that. We have, I think I mentioned it, but we have two beautiful masks being made for Antony and Cleopatra. Cleopatra will be the goddess Isis, and Antony will be the god Osiris, and they're beautiful masks being made by some really talented mask makers. So come see it and see these masks.